what I want to invite you to consider tonight, as you listen to AJ share a bit more about what he's been kind of going through, is will you ask Jesus, is there something in what AJ shared tonight that you resonate with, that connects to you, and you're like, oh man, I get it, I feel it, I need help with that, I need prayer for that. Just pay attention in that way and ask the Lord to lead your heart, because AJ's he's gonna model some vulnerability tonight for us, and we want to be a people who are vulnerable for love's sake, right? So he's gonna love you guys with vulnerability tonight, and I know his prayer and my prayer is that if there's anything about what he shares tonight that speaks to you, that it can be something that we can come around you and pray for you and be with you in as well as you do the work. So, AJ, you want to come up? You want to sit down or stand up?
I want to sit down.
Okay. All right. It's all you, buddy. Give AJ a hand.
All right. I'm not entirely sure how this is gonna go. I don't know if I'm just gonna be like smiling and laughing about it. I don't know if I'm gonna be breaking down by the end of this. So whatever happens, just bear with me. So as I did last week, I just want to first make it known like how appreciated your guys' presence is being here. You know, to share all this with like a crowd that's like this big, you know, and that cares as much as I know you guys do. It kind of just promotes what this is all really about in terms of vulnerability and growing together as a church. I just ask that what I say today and here just stays, you know, in this room, or that stays, you know, amongst us. Because, you know, if we want to be vulnerable with each other, that has to come with confidentiality. My story today, it's rough, it's ugly, it's sad and depressing. I make many bad decisions, and when you hear the story, it doesn't seem like it's about, you know, a Christian kid that's been attending youth group for like 6 years now. It sounds like a lost teenager struggling to find the reason. I wouldn't say right now that I have my good ending or, you know, why this has happened yet, but maybe this moment right here is why. So it starts like this. After 4 months of being in a relationship, my partner and I, we started to drift. It's led to sticky situations, like a lot of miscommunication, a lot of loneliness. And as this all happened, there were multiple occasions throughout the months of December and January where I was indecently assaulted, which is pretty much just unintentional sexual assault. I ask that no speculation is made on, you know, what happened and how that went down. You know, there was no intent to hurt myself the way that it did. And I sat with, you know, that feeling for a few weeks until I finally gained the courage to end that relationship. But this was really only the beginning of the next 6 months. At the end of the relationship, I didn't miss anybody, and I didn't miss anything that I used to have, but I really missed myself. I worked so hard to do everything I could that I felt would save our relationship, just to be, you know, back where I was before. Only now, I just completely lost my confidence in myself. That was my first mistake. Beverly once told me, and I'm not directly quoting her because I don't remember word for word what she said, that you can't make your partner happy in a relationship. When we were struggling, I did all I could when I should just let God guide myself and my partner. It wouldn't have saved my relationship, maybe, but it would have saved my self-confidence. I spent so much time after that hating myself over every little thing that I'd done wrong. I went back through years of arguments and old relationships and friendships and pointed out every mistake that I'd made, and it built up this huge wall of insecurity and self-hatred that prevented me from finding and loving myself. And that ultimately led to thoughts of suicide and self-harm, when all I could have taken was just a piece of scripture to realize that even when I hate myself, God still loves the person I am. I avoided my Bible, and it sat on my desk for months. I didn't go to youth group at that time because I had soccer and I couldn't make it. I missed a lot of valuable discussions due to soccer, and I found myself in another hole with everything on my mind. I started losing my starting spot in soccer, and that's something that I was really passionate about because I'd never been in that kind of situation before. And that kind of just added to it, just me starting to just decrease my self-value. And then we go into February, and if you were to ask me like what period of my life really changed myself as a character, I'd say February of this year. When I finally did get the chance to play, it felt like the weight of the world was on my shoulders. Like if I let a goal in, then I essentially had no more value because I couldn't maintain a relationship. My grades were dropping, and I wasn't even making it in the one thing that I was really passionate about. In that game, it was a disaster. I was having an anxiety attack before the game had even started, and I was making mistakes, and I took a big hit, and I just decided to come out for the rest of the game, supposedly. Going back, going through these old messages a few days prior to that led me to write a lot of apology letters. That guilt, to some extent, is still really like carried with me to this day. One letter that wasn't only extremely long, but the most heartfelt was a really long apology letter that belonged to my then ex-girlfriend, Bianca D'Arizondo. Coming off of this high from this, so in that same game, I had to go back on for one play because something happened, and I made like a game-winning save, and I came straight off after. So that kind of really like helped me get on this, high for this little amount of time. So that night, I just made the decision to send her that letter. And it had been a year since we talked at all. And I felt like if there was any moment where I was gonna get this guilt off my shoulders, it was right now. So I did it. Was I a year late? Of course, but she was really thankful. And she told me that she hoped everything would get better for me, which, meant a lot coming from her, considering the fact that all I had told her was that I had to go through a lot to come back to this situation, our struggles. This felt good for like a day or two, and then I'd realized that I'd developed feelings for her again. And seeing the kind of person I'd taken for granted and I had treated so terrible really kind of just ate at me. Like I said, I'd lost all my confidence, and I'd never like envisioned myself making a move again, and I kind of just spent the next 3 weeks doing like the worst thing I could have done for myself. I stayed quiet. I doubted myself in every decision that I made. I filled my ears with music that helped me to be content with how depressed I was. I walked by myself in the rain during lunch, and I isolated myself from the people who just wanted to help me. All to just yearn for something I didn't want to work for, and to reminisce on the past. this isolation gave me a lot more time to think, and this time spent thinking just became time filled with my thoughts of suicide. It would keep me up, and I went some nights without sleeping at all. At times, I reverted just to heavy doses of medication, sleeping medication to keep me asleep. And I eventually realized that probably wasn't the way to go about things, so I stopped. And I just started to kind of endure these long nights. And life was really hard. It was really hard for me. And then I think this is kind of the moment where God just intervened in a way that, you know, was kind of just confusing until you look at the bigger picture. I don't know why. I was just scrolling through our old messages, and for whatever reason, my phone just spazzed out, and it sent her a notification saying that the conversation went into vanish mode, which kind of just sends her a notification and makes me look like I'm just a creep. So I took that opportunity though. I sent her a real message. I asked if I could talk to her, and it was her birthday, so I said happy birthday. I did talk to her. Asked if I could talk about some kind of rumor thing that I heard. It was all just to see her again, and that went very well. And 2 days later, I told her how I felt, and we started talking again. And then March came, and that talking stage was just a roller coaster of emotion. My head was still polluted by the same thoughts, guilt, and doubts as before. I carried the feel of failure and falling behind through every part of my life, adding now this relationship. My clouded mind reflected in grades dropping and my motivation to work hard deteriorating. So much that I'd worked for started slipping through the cracks of my fingers, and I started to not care about that anymore. I felt burnt out, and I felt like all the work that I put in was just never gonna pay off. I sat in this hole, and it brought me to my darkest point in life. This meant that dark thoughts led to darker actions. There were some nights I'd contemplate suicide to a serious extent, not just the thoughts going in my head, but I'd take a belt and I'd hang it on this hook in my office, and I'd go up on a step ladder and kind of just sit there with all my thoughts and all the pressure just going through my head of what I should do at that moment. I have a lot of people to thank for helping me get out of that. I had conversations with some people that I really don't talk to much or even at all, and that helped me realize that, yeah, sometimes life, it really does suck. And me not being able to see the positive or see the good in every moment, it's not like it's because I'm doing something wrong, I was just going through a rough patch. And that really helped me feel seen, and it helped me realize that there's a lot of people that were really worried about me. People from my friends to the keepers I trained, to my parents as well. And that led me to counseling, which kind of helped, but not as much as it helps a lot of other people. And it definitely did not help as much as God would have if I would have trusted Him to take control of my worries and struggle. Summer finally came, and I finished school strong, and I was ready to spend all my days with friends and with Bianca, because I still to this day struggle being on my own, especially in my house. These expectations aren't really being met to the extent that I thought they would. People are busy, nothing, bad about them, but I spend a lot of time in bed, rotting on my phone, even now. And thankfully I have been getting out a little more. Even going on walks by myself have been, helping. But the struggle to enjoy my time alone comes from, those constant thoughts of self-harm. And now they just come at random times. I don't have to be upset about something for it to cross my mind. they aren't backed by negative emotion, my mind just wanders into dark places so often, and I just don't know what to do with that. It's like those random moments where you remember that you have to control your breathing voluntarily, or you remember the game that you all just lost. That's where I am right now. I'm still hurt and I'm still healing. And that's kind of what I'm referring to in not having my good ending yet. I've always needed help, and today is a day where I kind of just quit my habits and, trusting what I think is best for myself. Because I finally understand there's just nothing I can do about it. And it's time to surrender all this up to God. At first, when I was talking to Nick, I wanted to do this to find closure as to why this all happened. But he taught me that I may not learn a lesson on why this happened. But the reason that we experience struggle in life is just to grow closer to God through it. Because He will get you out of it. So my message to all of you guys today is don't wait to put your trust in Him. It's gonna be hard. It can be hard. It's going to be really hard for me. I'm just doing this today. And some may not understand what that entails. I'm not entirely sure either. But if you're trying to help yourself and you're not getting anywhere, I think me being here telling you this is your sign that it's because there's nothing you can do. There's not always something you can do, or there's always something God can do. Sleeping, drugs, alcohol, partying, all that stuff, it's just temporary coping mechanisms that only God's gonna really permanently save you from the struggles you don't tell everyone about. If you connect my story to that,